Welcome back to the Bluegrass family, where we share our farm and homestead as well as our family's recipes right here from the Bluegrass State. If you're new here, we would love for you to like and subscribe to our channel. And if you're not new, we thank you greatly for your continued support. Today we are stepping into the third week of Thanksgiving Feast Fundamentals. We have already posted 2 videos about our Thanksgiving prep, which I will link below if you haven't seen. Come into the kitchen today with me as we prepare some of my family's most favorite Thanksgiving casseroles that I know you're going to love. The first casserole that we are going to prepare is a cheddar broccoli casserole with a homemade mushroom soup. It is simple, quick, and delicious. You will need either fresh or frozen broccoli florets, fresh mushrooms for your homemade soup, mayonnaise, a couple of eggs, some butter, crushed crackers, seasonings such as salt and pepper, and shredded cheddar cheese. I was using fresh and not frozen broccoli. If you are using frozen broccoli, it would be wise to allow it to thaw completely and drain off any excess water so that your casserole doesn't turn out watery. But since I'm using fresh broccoli, I start by chopping my broccoli into small, bite-sized pieces and then allow it to boil on the stovetop for about 5 to 10 minutes or until it is fork tender. Since I'm making my own homemade mushroom soup, which I will also be using for my green bean casserole, I needed some fresh mushrooms, so I washed those well under cool running water and chopped those up into bite-sized pieces for the mushroom gravy. To make our from scratch mushroom soup, you will need to start with a stick of butter. I did use salted butter and allowed that to melt. Then I added in some chopped onion and my chopped mushrooms, a couple of teaspoons of red wine vinegar, and a few sprinkles of sage. This recipe can be modified, just taste as you go and add the herbs and spices that suit you and your family. I then added in all-purpose flour to create my roux and poured in some chicken broth slowly. When you're making a roux, you want to allow your flour to completely cook with the butter. Give it a few minutes before you add in your chicken broth. And whenever you do add in your chicken broth, you want to go really slow and just continue to check the consistency of the soup. You want this mushroom soup to be thick like a gravy and not runny, because you're going to be adding it into a casserole and you don't want a watery or a runny casserole. If you get to the end and your soup is a little bit runny, if you want to thicken it up, you can melt some butter and add in flour and create a thick paste, and then you can add that into your mushroom soup and it will really help to make your soup a lot thicker. After you've added in the chicken stock and you have a good consistency, you feel like it's a nice thicker consistency, you can add in your whole cream and allow that to simmer and just melt together for a while and thicken up before you're ready to start preparing your broccoli casserole. Now that you have completed your mushroom soup, you've boiled your broccoli florets until they are fork tender, you can begin assembling your broccoli casserole. You will need a 9 by 13 baking dish. I opted for an aluminum dish that I could either use to freeze my casserole or you could throw it away after you're done. You get a large mixing bowl and put your broccoli in, add about 1 cup of your homemade mushroom soup, about 1 cup of mayonnaise, 2 whisked eggs, 1 cup of shredded cheddar cheese, and then you can season as you'd like. It's fine to just taste it as you go. There's nothing in this that's really other than the egg, but I just taste as I go. I add a little bit of salt, a little bit of pepper. Sometimes I'll add in a little garlic or onion if I feel like that it needs it, but it's really just your personal preference. So you mix all of this together, and you've already preheated your oven to 350 degrees. You've got your aluminum pan set out and you've oiled that or sprayed that. You can mix this all together and pour it into your aluminum throwaway pan, and then you can top it with your crushed crackers. I did use just regular buttered round rich crackers with a little bit of melted butter as the topping on this homemade casserole. That's kind of a classic within my family. It's always either the crushed rich crackers with a little bit of melted butter or the crushed corn flakes with a little bit of melted butter, and that's just something that I don't mess with. That's something that my mom has always done. That's the way that she's always made her casseroles, and so I don't mess with what has always been kind of a classic or a tradition whenever we're making casseroles in the family. So this broccoli casserole goes in the oven for about 30 minutes, give or take. Everything is pretty much already cooked that's in it, except for the eggs, but the broccoli is already cooked, so it doesn't take very long to come together. If you're wanting to freeze this casserole, you can either go ahead and choose to bake it and then allow it to cool completely and then wrap it in an aluminum foil and freeze it, or you can choose not to bake it and you can freeze it without adding any topping on it, and then when you're ready to bake it, you can pull it out and allow it to thaw in your refrigerator, and then you can add the Ritz crackers on top and bake it from there. Now we are officially ready to start probably my most favorite family casserole that we have every year for Thanksgiving, and that is hash brown casserole. It is so simple and so delicious. All you need are some frozen either shredded or the little potatoes, hash browns, whatever, and then you need a cup of sour cream, and you need a can of cream of chicken soup, some shredded cheddar cheese, about a cup of that, and then your seasonings of choice. I did opt for salt, pepper, garlic powder, and onion powder in my hash brown casserole because I don't put any chopped onions in it, and it is so delicious and so simple to make. Like I said, I'm preparing my casseroles in throwaway aluminum pans. That way I can either throw away what I don't want or freeze them, and so these are absolutely perfect for freezing. And if you want, you can do the same thing just like you did with the broccoli casserole. You can either bake it and then allow it to cool and freeze, or you can freeze it and then bake it on the day of your gathering. And so you actually bake this casserole for quite a bit longer because the hash browns need time to fully cook and everything needs time to come together, and so it takes about an hour and a half. And instead of topping this casserole with Ritz crackers, my mom always uses crushed cornflakes and butter. So that is what I also use, and I put a little layer of some shredded cheddar below the topping just to give it an added delicious cheesy middle layer in there between the crunchy top and the potatoes. And so this is just, it's a classic. This is definitely a classic. We always have this at Thanksgiving, and I'm so happy to share this recipe with you all. If I haven't said it already, you'll be able to find all of these recipes up on our blog at www.thebluegrassfamily.com. To get started with our green bean casserole, I am actually using some of our homegrown garden fresh green beans that I had already frozen into these Ziploc bags. So I'm bringing a pot of water up to boil, and I'm adding in our frozen green beans just to bring those up to room temperature and allow those to thaw in the water. And then I will strain those in a colander in the kitchen sink, and I'll use these green beans to prepare our casserole. If you don't have fresh frozen green beans, you can also use canned green beans, or you can opt to buy fresh green beans from the deli section or from somewhere and chop those up and cook those. But you want to cook them to where they're fully done, because pretty much what you're going to be doing with the green bean casserole is just heating everything up. There isn't a lot to it, so you don't want to have to try to be cooking your green beans while it's baking in the oven. To get the green bean casserole started, we start with our garden fresh green beans that we've already brought up and heated up by boiling those in water. And I fried a few pieces of bacon and added that in with a little bit of onion as well. And then I add in a couple of cups of shredded cheddar cheese, and then our homemade mushroom soup, and then a 1/4 cup of milk, and then some fried onions. And so you can just mix those in and add this into your throwaway aluminum pan or a baking dish that you're wanting to use. And the same thing, you can freeze this if you would like, the same way that you would with the hash brown casserole or the broccoli casserole. You're going to top this with the fried onions, and you're going to bake it at 350 for about 30 minutes to heat everything up thoroughly. This is a very delicious green bean casserole with lots of good flavor with the cheddar, green beans, onion, bacon. It's so cheesy and delicious, you cannot go wrong. It's definitely a Southern staple. It's a staple for our family Thanksgiving every year. I hope you all have enjoyed these videos and can use these recipes for your family's Thanksgiving.